They thought Earth would surrender. They thought humanity's spirit was broken, that we would bow to their might and fall into despair. But they were wrong. When the skies turned dark and the invaders descended, they underestimated one thing: the indomitable will of mankind. Earth may have been battered, but it was far from defeated. And now, the fight for our survival begins. It all started on a quiet Tuesday. The morning sun rose slowly over the horizon, casting a warm golden light across the peaceful landscapes of Earth. People went about their daily lives, unaware of the fate that was about to descend upon them. Cities bustled with activity, workers hurried to their offices, and families enjoyed the calm of ordinary life. But far beyond the skies, in the dark and silent vastness of space, a storm was brewing, one that would shake humanity to its core. The first sign of the coming catastrophe was subtle, like a whisper on the wind. A series of strange electromagnetic pulses were detected by Earth's satellites, but at first, no one paid much attention. Scientists debated the cause, suggesting everything from natural cosmic radiation to solar flares. It wasn't until the massive ships appeared on the radar that anyone realized the truth. These weren't space debris or meteor showers. No, this was something much more terrifying: an invasion. From the moment they arrived, the Zala made their presence felt. Their ships, vast and black as the night, emerged from the void of space, hovering above Earth's cities. The first ship, enormous and sleek, cast a shadow over the metropolis of New York, its surface gleaming with an eerie, almost unnatural glow. It was a thing of nightmares, a cold reminder that humanity was about to face something unlike anything it had ever seen before. The message they sent was clear, and the words, though spoken in a language none of us had ever heard, echoed across every screen, every communication device across the globe. A deep, mechanical voice crackled through the airwaves, speaking in a tone both ominous and commanding. This world is ours now. Surrender or face annihilation. At first, the people of Earth thought it was some sort of joke, a hoax, perhaps. But as the hours passed, it became evident that the threat was real. The ships moved with an impossible speed, their dark forms blotting out the sun as they hovered over the world's most powerful nations. Governments scrambled to respond, calling emergency meetings, contacting allies, and attempting to understand what they were facing. But no one knew. No one could prepare for an invasion like this. The Zala were unlike anything Earth had ever encountered, a highly advanced alien race with technology that seemed to defy all known laws of physics. As the sun set that evening, the world held its breath. People gathered in their homes, watching the news in a mixture of fear and disbelief. What did this mean for humanity? Was this the end? Panic spread across the streets, and yet through the uncertainty, a deep sense of resolve began to stir. Earth had been through wars, through disasters, through the worst of what life could throw at them. But this was different. The stakes were higher than ever before. And then, something unexpected happened. The leaders of Earth, world leaders, scientists, military commanders, met in secret, not to discuss surrender, but to devise a plan. Despite the terrifying odds, they knew that Earth's only chance was to stand united. They would not bow down to the Zala. They would fight. This was not just a fight for survival. It was a fight for humanity's future. With each passing hour, the resolve of Earth's people grew stronger. They were not going to give up without a fight. No matter how advanced the enemy, no matter the odds, they were ready. The first wave of the Zala attack came swiftly. Without warning, their ships began to fire, unleashing powerful energy blasts that decimated entire cities in an instant. The glowing beams of destruction hit the heart of London, Paris, New York, and Tokyo. Skyscrapers crumbled, and millions of lives were lost in the blink of an eye. The air was thick with the scent of smoke, and the skies above darkened as debris rained down. The people of Earth were in shock, their sense of safety and security shattered in one brutal strike. In the chaos that followed, governments scrambled to respond. Across the globe, emergency meetings were called, military leaders huddled with strategists, and scientists worked feverishly to analyze the enemy's technology. The sheer scale of the destruction left the world reeling. How could they possibly fight back against such an advanced foe? The Zala had proven their power, and their message was unmistakable. Surrender, or face total annihilation. At first, fear swept through every nation. Whispers of capitulation filled the air. People wondered if this was the end, if humanity was doomed to be just another conquered species in the vast expanse of space. But as the dust settled and the world began to process the destruction, something else happened. Something no one expected. The survivors of the attack, those who had witnessed the devastation firsthand, began to rise. There was a fierce energy that began to spread across the globe, a surge of defiance that could not be ignored. The fear, though palpable, was met with an even stronger will to fight. Leaders from every nation stood in front of cameras, their faces grave, yet determined. They spoke to their people, urging unity, urging strength. "We will not surrender," they said. "We will fight back, together. This is not the end. This is the beginning of humanity's resistance." It was a rallying cry that echoed through the hearts of every citizen on Earth. People flooded the streets, not with fear, but with resolve. The enemy thought they could break us, but they underestimated humanity's greatest strength, our refusal to give up. As the leaders of Earth's nations held their meetings, they began to coordinate a response. The military was mobilized across the world, with every country contributing what they could. It was a massive undertaking, something that had never been seen before. Nations coming together, setting aside old differences, and fighting for the survival of the planet. In the chaos, there was an undeniable sense of unity, of strength in numbers. The world might have been divided before, but now, we were all one. Scientists worked around the clock to understand the Zala's technology, analyzing every bit of debris, every piece of their advanced weaponry that had been left behind. They studied their ships, their weapons and their tactics, hoping to find a weakness, something that could give humanity a fighting chance. And in the midst of it all, ordinary citizens did their part, organizing efforts to support the war effort, helping survivors, and providing whatever aid they could. And so, the world's resolve hardened. The Zala thought we would surrender. They thought we would collapse under the weight of their attack. But they were wrong. We were not going to give up. Not this time. Not ever. Earth had been brought to its knees, but it was not broken. We were ready to fight back. The battle had only just begun, and already the scale of the devastation was unlike anything humanity had ever experienced. The Zalor ships, vast and indestructible, unleashed wave after wave of attacks, tearing apart cities, burning forests, and poisoning rivers. Every strike was a cruel reminder of their overwhelming power. But Earth was not going down without a fight. Our military forces, though outmatched in technology, rallied together like never before. We were outnumbered, outgunned, and outclassed. But we had something the Zala didn't. We had the will to fight. The first counterattack came from Earth's combined air forces, desperate and fueled by the need to survive. Fighter jets and bombers, each carrying a load of homemade weapons designed in record time, soared into the sky, weaving in and out of the massive ships above. The odds were stacked against them. Every ship that fell was replaced by two more, and each blast from the Zalor caused the skies to ignite in fiery explosions. But the pilots, these brave souls, fought with everything they had. They knew their chances were slim, but it didn't matter. They were doing this for the future of humanity. On the ground, the story was no different. The Zalor sent their war machines, humanoid robots with advanced weaponry designed to crush anything in their path. These machines stormed the cities, their footfalls shaking the earth beneath them. They tore through military strongholds, demolishing tanks, soldiers, and weapons with terrifying efficiency. But the people of Earth did not cower. They fought back using whatever they could: small arms, makeshift bombs, and guerrilla tactics. Ordinary citizens joined the battle, turning their cities into war zones, refusing to let their homes fall without a fight. Across the world, scientists and engineers worked around the clock, desperately trying to find a way to turn the tide. The Zalor's technology was advanced beyond our wildest imaginations. But we had our ingenuity, and that was something the invaders didn't understand. Humanity's ability to adapt and innovate under pressure was our greatest weapon. Engineers began constructing makeshift EMP devices, hoping to disable the Zalor's electronic systems. Tech experts modified communication networks to counter the alien transmissions that blocked all military efforts. It was a race against time, with every passing second bringing more destruction. But our resolve never wavered. In the midst of it all, Earth's leaders remained united, communicating across borders and time zones, ensuring that every resource, every weapon, every soldier was coordinated in the fight. A unified front had emerged, and the invaders could feel it. The strength of humanity lay not in its technology, but in its spirit. We had been beaten back time and time again, but the thought of surrender, of giving in to the Zalor, was not something anyone could accept. The fight for Earth had become more than just a military engagement. It was a battle for our very existence. As the war dragged on, the resilience of humanity became undeniable. The Zalor may have had the upper hand in terms of weapons and technology, but they didn't understand us. They didn't understand what it meant to fight for home, for family, for survival. With every attack, every death, every loss, we fought harder. Earth had been bruised, battered, and broken, but it was not done. The Zalor may have underestimated our strength, but that was their fatal mistake. We would not go quietly into the night. We would rise, and we would win. Months passed, and the war was wearing on. Earth's cities lay in ruins, and the death toll was rising by the day. The Zalor seemed unstoppable, their ships prowling the skies like predators, hunting down anything that dared to stand in their way. Yet, despite the overwhelming odds, humanity had not given up. It had adapted, fought back, and found strength in the face of despair. But as time wore on, the situation grew desperate. There seemed to be no end to the Zalor's relentless assault, no weakness to exploit, and no hope for salvation. That was when a breakthrough came. A team of brilliant scientists, working in secret, uncovered something that could change the course of the war. They had been studying the wreckage of a Zalor ship, the only piece of their technology that had survived an attack, when they discovered a flaw, an opening in the enemy's defense system that could be exploited. It wasn't much, but it was enough. The scientists quickly realized that the Zalor's shields, though nearly indestructible, had one critical vulnerability. If targeted with a precise energy pulse, the shields could be disrupted long enough to allow a direct hit to the ship's core. But there was a catch. The technology needed to generate such a pulse was far beyond anything Earth had ever created. It was experimental, dangerous, and most of all, untested. The risk was immense. If the weapon failed, it could endanger everything. But without it, humanity's chances of victory were slim to none. This was their last hope. Captain Elizabeth Liz Carter, one of Earth's most decorated military leaders, was called upon to lead a strike team on a perilous mission to infiltrate a Zayla mothership and deploy the weapon. Liz was a warrior, seasoned by years of combat, and she knew the gravity of the task at hand. She understood the stakes. She knew this mission would be dangerous, more dangerous than anything she had ever faced. But she also knew that there was no choice. Failure wasn't an option. As Liz prepared her team for the mission, the weight of the world seemed to hang on her shoulders. Earth had endured so much, but the question remained: would they be able to strike back with the weapon and end the Zayla's reign of terror? Liz didn't have time for doubts. The plan was set. They would launch their assault under the cover of darkness, using stealth tactics to breach the mothership's defenses. It was a suicide mission, but it was humanity's only chance. The night before the mission, Liz stood before her team. There was no pep talk, no speech about victory or glory. They all knew the truth. This was the final push. The silence in the room was thick with the tension of unspoken words. Each member of the team knew they might never come back. But they didn't hesitate. They were ready. The team launched their attack under the cover of the darkened sky. They moved swiftly, silently, their footsteps barely audible as they infiltrated the Zayla ship. It was like entering the heart of an enemy's lair, where every corner could be their last. But they pressed on, pushing forward with determination. The weapon was their only hope. The pulse had to be deployed. As they reached the core of the ship, the alarms blared. The Zayla had detected their presence. The team fought their way through wave after wave of alien forces, each battle more brutal than the last. Liz's leadership, her unyielding courage, held them together, even as the odds seemed to stack higher against them. The weapon was set. The pulse was fired. The ship shuddered violently. The Zayla's shields flickered, then failed. In that brief moment, the world held its breath. The weapon had worked. The crack in their defenses had been found. The Zayla were vulnerable. But as the team made their retreat, the full weight of their actions hit them. The mission was far from over. This was only the beginning. The fight was not yet won, but it had shifted. The tide was turning, and Earth was no longer helpless. It was ready to strike back. The Zayla's retaliation was swift, brutal, and unlike anything Earth had ever witnessed. The success of the strike team, the weapon that had disrupted their shields, had barely been celebrated before the invaders unleashed their fury. Furious and humiliated, the Zayla began their counter-offensive with a ferocity that shook the very core of humanity's resolve. Every corner of Earth that had managed to stay standing after the initial attack became a target. Cities that had been spared were now in the crosshairs of the Zayla's wrath. The first blasts were catastrophic, ripping apart entire cities in seconds, leaving nothing but smoldering ruins. The sheer scale of the destruction was unimaginable. The sky above the major capitals burned red with fire from the Zayla's orbital bombardments, and the ground trembled beneath the weight of their colossal war machines as they descended. It felt as though the very Earth itself was being torn apart. Each explosion, each flash of light that consumed the cities below, was a reminder that humanity was losing the battle, that time was running out. But in the midst of the devastation, something incredible happened. The people of Earth, those who had survived the initial strikes, refused to break. They did not surrender. Amid the rubble and the chaos, they found the strength to rise again. The military, battered and bruised, began to reorganize. New strategies were devised, and alliances between nations strengthened. Humanity had faced worse and survived. Now they would face the worst of all and fight back with everything they had. The Zayla thought they had broken humanity's spirit. They thought that by showing the full extent of their power, they could force Earth to bend. But Earth's people had something the Zayla could never understand, something that was woven into the very fabric of humanity. They had a will to survive, a refusal to surrender. Each blast from the enemy only fueled their determination. Earth's leaders came together once more, not to consider surrender, but to discuss their next steps, their counterattack. The discussions were heated, but one thing was clear. Humanity would never submit to the Zayla. They would not give up. The rest of the world watched as the major powers of Earth, those that had been shattered by the initial attacks, began to rebuild, to regroup. There were no more thoughts of giving in, no more ideas of capitulating to the Zayla. Every nation began to contribute whatever they could, from weapons and supplies to intelligence and military support. The world had become a united front, and the Zayla were beginning to realize that their attempts to dominate Earth were no longer going as planned. Scientists, engineers, and military strategists worked tirelessly to understand the full extent of the Zayla's power. In their research, they discovered new ways to counter the enemy's technology. The Zayla's weapons, though terrifying, had limitations, weaknesses that had been overlooked before. They were no longer invincible. As Earth's forces gathered their resources, they found new ways to strike back. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about taking the fight to the Zayla and making them understand that Earth would not bend. And so, humanity stood firm. The Zayla had unleashed their full force, but the world was not broken. The fight had only just begun. Every person who stood up to fight, every soldier who picked up a weapon, every scientist who worked on a new solution, was a testament to the unbreakable spirit of Earth. The Zayla may have thought they could crush us, but they had gravely underestimated the power of human resilience. Earth would fight, and Earth would win. The tides were turning, and the invaders would soon learn just how wrong they were. The war had reached a pivotal moment. The Zayla, once confident in their victory, were beginning to feel the weight of humanity's resolve pressing down on them. Earth's forces had adapted, and every day the planet's resistance grew stronger. It wasn't just the military anymore. It was the entire world coming together. Scientists, engineers, civilians, all working toward a common goal: the survival of Earth. The once shattered nations had now united under one cause. The weapon that had disrupted the Zayla's shields was just the beginning. Humanity had more tricks up its sleeve, more innovation, more will to fight than the invaders could have ever anticipated. In the aftermath of the Zayla's devastating retaliation, Earth's counteroffensive began to take shape. The first successful strike on a Zayla warship marked a turning point. The combined forces of Earth's military, now more coordinated and focused, launched a series of targeted attacks on the remaining motherships, using the same strategy that had worked on the first ship. The Zayla shields, weakened and compromised, began to fall under the repeated barrage of Earth's new weapons. The invaders had underestimated the power of human ingenuity and the relentless spirit of a planet fighting for its future. For weeks, Earth's military forces pressed on, launching airstrikes, ground assaults, and naval offensives against the Zayla's remaining strongholds. The battles were fierce, and the cost was high. But each victory, no matter how small, was a step toward reclaiming their world. And with each victory came the realization that the Zayla were not invincible. They had made a critical error by underestimating humanity's ability to adapt and fight back. They had thought Earth would surrender, that they could break the will of its people. But as the weeks passed, Their arrogance began to fade, replaced by the cold realization that this war was far from over, and they were no longer the ones in control. The Zaylor's once dominant fleets began to falter. Their motherships, once nearly impervious to attack, were being destroyed one by one, as Earth's forces honed their strategies and targeted the very heart of the enemy's power. The Zaylor tried to regroup, sending in reinforcements and more devastating attacks, but the momentum was shifting. The humans had found a way to push back, and there was no turning back now. In the midst of the fighting, Captain Liz Carter's strike team became a symbol of hope. Their mission, though perilous, had struck a blow that changed everything. Liz and her team had infiltrated the Zaylor mothership, deployed the weapon, and created a vulnerability that Earth's forces now exploited with precision. They were not just soldiers. They were the embodiment of Earth's unbreakable will. As Liz's team continued their mission, new squads formed, inspired by their courage and determination. Across the globe, ordinary citizens became warriors. Every human, no matter their background, was now part of the resistance. Earth was no longer a planet under siege. It was a planet fighting back. The Zaylor, in their desperation, launched a final assault, hoping to crush the remaining resistance in one swift blow. They underestimated the power of unity, the collective strength of a people who had nothing left to lose but everything to gain. As their ships descended upon Earth, ready to unleash the final wave of destruction, they faced something they hadn't accounted for. Humanity had become a force of its own. The final battle was not one of overwhelming firepower or technological superiority. It was one of resolve, of every person on Earth standing together. The last wave of Zaylor ships, once thought to be unbeatable, was met with an unexpected fury. Earth's forces fought not only with weapons, but with everything they had. Their homes, their families, their futures. The Zaylor, once so sure of their victory, were now fighting for their very survival. They had awakened something in humanity that they could never have imagined. A force that could not be contained, a will that could not be broken. And so, the tide turned. The Zaylor's final assault was repelled, their remaining ships either destroyed or forced into retreat. Earth had won, but the cost was high. The planet was scarred, its cities in ruins, and many had given their lives in the fight. Yet, Earth stood victorious, stronger than ever before, with a future now firmly in its own hands. Humanity had not surrendered. They had triumphed. The dust had barely settled before the true weight of what had been accomplished began to sink in. The world, though battered and broken, stood victorious. The Zaylor, their invasion thwarted, had been forced to retreat, their forces shattered, and their once mighty fleet reduced to rubble. The cost had been astronomical. Entire cities destroyed, millions of lives lost, families torn apart. Yet in the face of unimaginable odds, humanity had done the unthinkable. We had fought back. We had survived. And we had won. In the days that followed the final battle, Earth's leaders gathered to begin the process of rebuilding. The work was monumental. There were entire nations to be rebuilt, cities to be restored, and wounds, both physical and emotional, to be healed. But despite the enormity of the task, there was a sense of hope that had never existed before. The people of Earth, once divided by borders, ideologies, and differences, now stood together as one. Nations that had once been adversaries now worked side by side, sharing resources, technology, and expertise to rebuild what had been lost. The survivors, those who had lived through the horrors of the Zaylor invasion, became the heart of the rebuilding effort. It wasn't just the leaders or the military that shaped this new world. It was every single person who had refused to give up, who had fought and survived. Each individual, no matter their role, had played a part in the victory. But even as Earth began to heal, the scars of war remained. Yet, amid the rubble, new life began to take root. Where there had been nothing but destruction, there was now the promise of a future. The world had been torn apart, but humanity had rebuilt it piece by piece, and every new structure, every new settlement was a testament to our determination to survive. In the years that followed, Earth's recovery was nothing short of miraculous. The damage that the Zala had wrought could not be undone, but it could be overcome. The people of Earth were now more connected than ever, working together to restore their planet, heal their wounds, and ensure that the horrors of the past would never be repeated. The lessons learned in those dark days were etched into the very soul of humanity. We had faced annihilation, and we had refused to bow. Earth was a stronger, more united planet for it. Their ships, their technology, their invasion, it had all been a wake-up call, a reminder that humanity was never truly alone in the universe. There were other forces, other civilizations out there, and Earth would never again take its safety for granted. The victory over the Zala was not just a triumph of strength, it was a victory of awareness. The universe was vast, and Earth now stood ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The Zala had learned the hard way that humanity could not be broken, but in their retreat, they left behind something else, a universe that would no longer underestimate Earth. As Earth's survivors looked up to the skies, they knew that the future was uncertain. But for the first time, they faced it with unwavering confidence. They had fought for their world, for their future, and they had won. Humanity had proven its worth on the galactic stage, and nothing would ever make them forget what they were capable of. Earth had survived. As we move forward, it is not just a time for rebuilding, it is a time for reflection. Let us remember those who sacrificed everything for our survival. Let us honor the lives lost and ensure their memory lives on in the new world we are creating. And as we look toward the stars, let us never forget the lesson that victory has taught us. Earth's spirit, humanity's spirit, is indomitable. We will stand tall, no matter the challenges that lie ahead, because we are Earth, and we will never surrender.